It was one of those mornings where the sun was just warm enough to make you think life wasn't entirely a dumpster fire. The kind of day where birds chirp obnoxiously, as if they've never paid taxes. Harrison James, a wiry 62-year-old with a face carved by years of military discipline and just enough life's bullshit, was sitting on his porch in a worn-out rocking chair. His jeans were frayed at the knees, his peace-over-power t-shirt had seen better days, and his ball cap barely contained the silver strands of hair that stuck out rebelliously. To his neighbors, he was just Old Man Harry. The guy who waved at everyone but rarely talked, the one who showed up at community barbecues, ate quietly, and left before the gossip really got juicy. Harmless, quiet, and oh so uninteresting, exactly the way he wanted it. But here's the thing about Harrison. He was nobody's harmless grandpa, not by a long shot. This was a man who'd seen hell and lived to tell the tale, or not tell it, as he preferred. 30 years in the U.S. Army, most of them leading missions that never made it to the evening news, had left their mark. But now he spent his days walking his neighborhood, feeding birds, and silently judging the world around him. That morning, as Harry laced up his sneakers, practical ones, none of that flashy crap kids wear these days, his granddaughter, Layla, burst into the room. At 12 years old, Layla was a firecracker. She had her mom's curls and her dad's stubborn streak, and she wasn't afraid to call out bullshit when she saw it. "Grandpa, Mr. Turner called me the N-word again," she blurted out, arms crossed, her little face set in defiance. Harry's hands froze mid-lace. He looked up at her, his sharp, steel-gray eyes narrowing. "That crusty old piece of—" He bit his tongue, not wanting to unleash a tirade of expletives in front of her. Instead, he sighed, his voice calm but laced with an edge. "What did you do?" "I told him he was too old to be that stupid," Layla said with a shrug, a smirk curling her lips. Harry let out a bark of laughter, shaking his head. "Good girl, but next time let me handle it. Old fools like Turner, they only learn the hard way." After breakfast, Harry set out on his usual walk. The neighborhood was a mix of middle-class comfort and quiet resentment. Perfectly trimmed hedges hid messy secrets, and every front porch seemed to have a ring camera because, God forbid, you trust your neighbors. Harry liked to keep his routine. It wasn't about exercise, it was about watching, learning, blending in. He noticed things most people didn't. The way Mrs. Jacobson always peeked out her blinds when someone walked by, or how the new guy at 304 always parked his car half on the curb, as if he didn't care about rules. Today, though, something felt off. A police cruiser rolled slowly past him, then stopped. Harry could feel their eyes on him, like vultures circling a dying animal. He kept walking, his posture relaxed, but his mind was already racing. "That's interesting," he muttered to himself. "Looks like someone's fishing." By the time he reached the corner store to grab his usual pack of gum, the cruiser had circled back. This time, the officers stepped out. One was a tall, beefy guy with a crew cut that screamed, "I peaked in high school football." The other was younger, nervous, the kind of guy who probably spent his lunch breaks practicing his tough cop face in the mirror. "Hey, you!" the beefy one barked, his voice as sharp as a slap. "Got a minute?" Harry stopped, turned slowly, and fixed them with a calm, measured look. "That depends. Are you selling Girl Scout cookies? Or is this about to be a waste of my time?" The younger cop stifled a laugh, but Beefy wasn't amused. "We got a report about a suspicious individual in the area," he said, stepping closer. "Suspicious, huh?" Harry said, tilting his head. "Let me guess. Old, black, and minding his own business?" The tension crackled in the air like static electricity. Beefy's jaw tightened. "Don't get smart with me, old man," Harry smirked, his voice dropping to a low, deliberate tone. "Son, if I wanted to get smart with you, you'd know it." The younger cop stepped forward, pulling out a notebook like it was some kind of peace offering. "Sir, we just need to ask a few questions. You were seen walking near a house that was reportedly broken into." Harry raised an eyebrow. "You mean my neighbor's house? The one with the broken lock I told her to fix 3 months ago?" "Yeah, I walked by. It's called a sidewalk. Look it up," Beefy snapped. "Turn around, hands behind your back." "For what?" Harry asked, his voice steady, but his eyes cold. "Walking while black, or are you just bored?" "Resisting an investigation," Beefy snarled, grabbing Harry's arm. For a split second, Harry considered his options. He could disarm this guy in 3 moves flat, hell, 2 if he felt ambitious, but instead he let the cop cuff him. Let them dig their own graves, he thought. As they shoved him into the back of the cruiser, Harry glanced out the window. A small crowd had gathered, neighbors, onlookers, and Layla, standing at the edge with her fists clenched and fire in her eyes. Harry winked at her. "Don't worry, kid," he said under his breath. "This isn't over." The police cruiser smelled like stale coffee and regret. Harry's first observation as they shoved him into the back seat. Officer Beefy, whose name he learned was Randall, strutted around like he'd just bagged a big fish. The younger cop, Jenkins, looked more like a scared kid trying not to screw up on his first day. "You got any idea what kind of trouble you're in?" Randall barked as they pulled away from the curb. Harry leaned back, arms still cuffed, as calm as a man ordering pancakes at a diner. "Trouble? Dude, the only trouble here is your attitude and that mustache. Who told you that was a good idea?" Jenkins stifled a laugh, but quickly straightened up when Randall glared at him. "You're under arrest for resisting investigation and loitering," Randall snapped. "Loitering?" Harry said, raising an eyebrow. "I was walking, genius. You might want to check the definition. It's in the dictionary, next to your career prospects." At the station, things got even better, or worse, depending on your perspective. They booked him like he was some hardened criminal. Fingerprints, mugshots, even a pat-down by a guy who clearly enjoyed his job too much. As Harry sat in the holding cell, he took in the scene. It was a circus. Cops cracking jokes, half-eaten donuts on desks, and Jenkins pacing like he'd lost his keys. "Hey, Jenkins," Harry called out. The rookie froze. "You nervous, or is that just your face?" Jenkins ignored him, but Harry smirked. "Yeah, thought so." Meanwhile, Randall strutted into the room like he owned the place. He dropped the paperwork on a desk with a flourish and declared, "Got us a real troublemaker here." Harry couldn't resist. "Yeah, big win for you, huh? Old man with a pack of gum. What's next? Arresting a toddler for jaywalking." A few other cops chuckled, but Randall wasn't amused. He leaned down, sneering. "You think this is funny? You'll be singing a different tune in court tomorrow." Harry met his glare, unflinching. "You think you're the first guy with a badge who's tried to scare me? Kid, I've stared down dictators with bigger egos than yours." As night fell, Harry sat back in his cell, arms crossed, and smiled to himself. Let them think they had the upper hand. They had no idea what they were walking into. The courtroom was packed. Neighbors, curious onlookers, and even a few reporters had shown up, all eager to see what the hell this old man could have done to land himself here. Harry sat at the defendant's table, calm as ever, like he was waiting for brunch instead of a verdict. Randall strutted in like he was the star of the show, puffing out his chest and throwing smug glances around the room. Harry couldn't help himself. He leaned over to his court-appointed lawyer, a guy who looked like he spent more time surfing than studying law, and muttered, "I give him 5 minutes before he says something stupid." The judge entered, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes that could cut through to steel. "Let's get this circus started," she said, banging her gavel. The prosecutor opened with a dramatic recount of Harry's crimes, painting him as some sort of menace to society. Harry smirked, leaning back in his chair. The lawyer beside him whispered, "You could at least pretend to take this seriously." "Oh, I'm taking it seriously," Harry replied. "Just not him." When it was Randall's turn, he went full Broadway. "This man resisted, disrespected law enforcement, and posed a threat to public safety," he declared, pointing at Harry like he'd just caught him smuggling diamonds. Harry raised an eyebrow. "Threat to public safety? Dude, I was holding a pack of gum." The judge's lips twitched, almost like she was fighting a smile. "Mr. James, you'll have your chance to speak." "Oh, don't worry, Your Honor," Harry said, flashing a grin. "When I do, you might want to grab some popcorn." As the testimonies dragged on, the crowd started shifting in their seats, sensing there was more to this story than anyone was letting on. Harry's calm demeanor wasn't just confidence, it was the kind of quiet control that made people nervous. And when his lawyer finally stood to call him to the stand, the room buzzed with anticipation. Harry adjusted his tie, stepped up, and looked straight at Randall. "Let's clear something up. You don't know who I am, but you're about to find out." The courtroom fell silent as Harry stood on the witness stand, his gaze steady, voice calm, but loaded with a quiet intensity. "You see, folks, this isn't my first rodeo," he began, his tone casual, almost conversational. "I've faced threats way bigger than an overzealous cop with a chip on his shoulder." The crowd leaned in. Even the judge raised an eyebrow. Randall shifted in his seat, suddenly less sure of himself. "I spent 30 years in the U.S. Army," Harry continued. "Led missions no one here would dare to dream about. But I didn't flaunt that when this guy decided I was suspicious. No, I wanted to see how far he'd take it." A gasp rippled through the room. The realization hit Randall like a slap. "You're lying," he stammered, his bravado cracking. Harry smiled, cool and sharp. "Oh, you want to see my credentials?" He pulled out a folder his lawyer had prepped. A full record of his service, complete with commendations, and a photo of him in full uniform, stars on his shoulders. The judge examined the documents, then fixed Randall with a look that could melt steel. "Officer Randall, do you have any idea who you've been dealing with?" Randall stammered, trying to spin some excuse, but it was too late. The crowd was buzzing, reporters scribbling furiously. Harry leaned back, his smirk now a full-blown grin. "Lesson 1, son. Never judge a book by its cover." Especially when that book's been through wars you can't even spell. The judge dismissed the charges with a sharp bang of her gavel. Case dismissed. Officer Randall, expect a full review of your conduct. As Harry walked out, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. Layla was waiting at the door, pride shining in her eyes. "Grandpa, you're a badass," she said, hugging him tightly. Harry chuckled, ruffling her hair. "Damn right, kid. Now let's get some ice cream. I think I've earned it." Thank you to everyone who listened to this story. We truly hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, Life Mosaic, where we bring you the most compelling and unforgettable stories. We're always working hard to deliver content that keeps you on the edge of your seat. We'll see you tomorrow. Same place, same energy. Take care and stay curious.